Yeah, man. Let's kick it off with Muay Thai, man. Of course, we gotta talk about Muay Thai first, man. Muay Thai.
First things first.
Um, Big news out of Thailand. One championship. They're gonna start putting on live shows every Friday inside Lumpinee. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that and the impact that will have on the sport.
Yeah. At first glance, I think it's exciting news. I posted about it when the news broke, and it seems like in general everyone's pretty excited about it. Um, everyone, at least here stateside, is seems to be pretty high on one and Chatri and what he's doing. Um, I'm not saying I'm smarter than anyone or or I know what's going on, but I think there's always two sides to kind of every story, and I think time will always tell, right? We can have an idea of how that might play out or what we think is going to happen or what we want to happen with those shows, but we'll see what happens. Nothing has happened yet, and so for me, I'm like, the way I was describing it to people is I'm just cautiously optimistic right now about what goes down next. So the people that I've talked to over here, that are kind of plugged into the sport, and a couple people in Thailand, there's two ways that this could go, right? Chatri could keep those fights the same. So like I'm talking about traditional Muay Thai, 5 rounds, Y crew, and preserve the sport, but just bring more eyes to it, which I think would be awesome, and inject some money into it. Excuse me. And then we could take those fighters that are doing well in the stadiums and then move them over to one afterwards, right? And that would be kind of a way to start building their following a little bit more internationally, aside from just the local gamblers and stuff who are watching them. Or the other option is he takes what he's doing with one right now and then he just puts that into Lumpinee Stadium, right? I don't know which way it's going to go. Personally, as kind of like, I love Muay Thai. I would love to see the first option happen of keeping what is there already and just making it better, right? Enhancing it a little bit more visibility, more money, stuff like that. But look, if he takes what he's doing at one now and just moves it to Lumpini once a week, it is what it is because the sport is changing right now. Even the sport of Muay Thai is changing. The stadiums are changing drastically, right? They're doing a lot. For example, right? They've talked about MMA at Lumpini. They have the shows over there. Um, Female fights in Lumpini now, which I love. Things are just changing. Times are changing. And so if they go that direction, then that's the direction they go, and we're gonna move with it. You got to kind of ride the wave. Like I said, I would hope for that first option. But if it's the second option, it is what it is. And I still think in some roundabout way it'll bring more eyes to Muay Thai. And that's a win too, So that's how I look at it.
At the end of the day, it's a business, and I could see the second option actually happening because in one championship there is no pure Muay Thai. It's Muay Thai with MMA gloves, which is called Super Series, and then there's kickboxing, and that's it, right? And I love it. I love watching it. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see which avenue that they take, what how they're gonna do it, and putting on a show every Friday is a huge endeavor.
A lot, man. That's a lot. That's a busy schedule.
Yeah, on top of all the other shows that they're gonna do, around the
Yeah,
world that they're talking about Europe and the U.S. and everything like that. But I'm pretty sure they're gonna start reaching out and hopefully they start bringing in international talent. You know what I mean, from the U.S., from Europe, and having them compete against the Thai fighters and build their names up like that. I think that will help the Thai fighters tremendously.
100%. Anytime that they can fight, Westerners with more exposure to this side of the world, it benefits them tremendously, So, if that's the route they decide to go, there's benefit to both sides. You know what I'm saying? I'm a person who believes that change is just change. It's not good or it's not bad. It's change, and you have to be able to adapt with it. There's a lot of people, and that may be because I'm, kind of younger in age in the sport. I know there's plenty of people kind of pushing back and saying, well, Muay Thai is dying as we knew it. It could be that, or it could just be that it's, changing directions, and this is the wave that we have to ride, and this is the direction we're going now. So it just kind of depends on your perspective, but yeah, man, I'm here for it. I'm here for the change. I like challenges like that. I like seeing things go in different directions. So let's roll with it, and let's see how it goes.
Yeah, ride the wave, and in this sport, you can't be too stubborn because if you're too stubborn, the it'll pass you up like your opportunities, right?
100%. Yep.
Now let's talk about MMA. I saw that you were recently out in Sweden. You stopped by the AllStars training center. How are the facilities there? I've never been there, but they should be high class, right? Or world class, sorry.
Yeah, yeah. So I was fortunate enough to take a trip out to Stockholm. So just a quick background on the trip. My fighter Bojan Velichkovic got invited out to help Khamzat get ready for his fight. At the time was with Nate Diaz, right? Um, Boyan has fought two of the All Stars guys in the past. He fought Nico Masuke in the UFC, and then he fought Jonathan Westin in PFL, and he beat both of those guys. So they're very familiar with Boyan. He's a lefty, so they brought him in, and I decided to go with him. So I was out there for about 8 days, watching the training and helping those guys out. Man, the facility's really cool. So it's kind of I don't know if I want to say downtown Stockholm because I'm not super great on the geography there, but it's pretty close to downtown. But it's actually in a basement. So you go down and then you're underground there, which has its advantages too. I know Stockholm in the winter gets really cold, so it's probably a really great spot when it's cold out. Um, when we were there, the weather was nice still, and so it got warm in there, and those mats get real slippery really fast. And those guys work hard every session, so like an hour into those sessions, that mat turns into a slip and slide pretty quickly. But that's also a testament to how hard those guys were working. So yeah, the facility was really cool. They're actually moving into a new facility in the next couple months here, about 10 or 15 minutes from their current location, and quite a bit bigger. Sounds like that, I think they've been in this location for 10 or 12 years. So they're finally expanding and upgrading, and it sounded like they're all really excited about that. So it'll be cool to check that out when we go back next.
It seemed like you got a little work in with Khamzat Chimaev. A lot of eyes on him. How was that experience?
Um, Man, it's funny to see how all of this stuff played out, after his fight, and the weight miss, and maybe if you want to say his behavior. Um, but I was very fortunate to be able to go out there before all of that happened and kind of really see who Hamzat is. And first and foremost, he's everything that you think he is and more. He's a monster. He really, really is an extreme talent in this sport. His work ethic matches his level and his potential and his talent level. It's really incredible. Um, I have not seen many people with the work rate that he has in this sport. Just from the effort that he produces in practice, the effort that he puts outside of practice, it was pretty phenomenal to see. And given his background of where he's from, his behavior is understandable in a way. I think it's hard for people to really see who he is as a person, but from what I've heard from the coaches there and what I witnessed too is he's a very kind teammate. He cares about his teammates a lot. He pushes them to be better and he takes care of them too. So, he's a guy that looks out for his tribe and his community, and he really cares about them. He really, really respects his coaches. But he's also, he's a savage, and when they get put in those situations, he's not going to back down from those situations. And what we saw was a result of who he is, and I would say that's authentic and consistent with who he is as a person. So if anything, I would say it's not an act; it's consistent. There's something to be said for that in this sport in this day and age, I think.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, being consistent with who you are. There is something to be said in this sport because there are some flip floppers out there.
Exactly. Yeah. We hear about the guys all the time that act a certain way in front of the camera, and then they go back and people say, oh, they're the nicest guy in the training room. And that's okay. Like, be yourself too. I get it. We all understand that this is a business and, especially in this day and age, it's an entertainment business too, but like I said, there's just something to be said about a person who's the same in front of the camera and who's the same off the camera. And I personally tend to appreciate those people a little bit more. So, yeah, Hamzat is definitely one of those individuals.
Yeah, Hamzat, what can you say? The guy is
Yeah.
a superstar in the making. Um, Flipping gears, Loma Lookboonmee last week she came out,
Yes.
and fought probably the best fight of her career, and mixed in the wrestling really well. It looks like George and them are finally getting her to do everything that they want her to do in the fight. And the crazy part about the fight was, or there was a few moments, but she opened up with a counter elbow. Man, who does that?
And landed it flush right
Yes,
off the bat,
and cut her.
like that. Oh man, like that to me. And look, Corey's elbow was cool for sure. It was awesome. I really like stepping elbows. There's something to be said about that one too. But like, man, pretty much the first strike of the fight, you haven't thrown an elbow yet. You haven't even, most people would not have figured out your opponent's timing and range yet, and for her to land an elbow like that on one of the first exchanges just is a testament to how experienced she is. It's incredible, man. Like, that moment, like you said, not enough people talked about that. I know I'm like, you and I both are kind of like Loma super fans. She's incredible, but to take a tool like that in the first minute of the fight and land it precisely and cut someone is really incredible. And yeah, that was amazing to watch.
Yeah, it was a great performance by her. Still a lot of stuff to work on. She's only 26. I think people forget that. You know what I mean? And she's yeah, I she's just gonna continue improving, and she also like opened up about the mental struggles of fighting and depression. Man, how commonplace is that in fighting? You're a coach, so you get to see all the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, man, it's a lot more commonplace than people realize it is in this sport, and especially at that level. Fighters invest so much into their careers and everything that they do related to fighting that, at some point when you win or you lose, that becomes your identity, right? If you win your last fight, you're a winner. Everything that you do associates with that. You get the fruit of the labor from that as well too. And it's the opposite when you lose, and probably even more so when you lose. Like, you have all of this pressure on top of you. You look at a situation like Loma, she has national pride on top of that as well too, right? She carries a really large burden on her shoulders, being kind of the only Thai in the UFC at the moment right now. And that pressure naturally carries over. That's a very Muay Thai thing as well too, right? Winning and losing, as much as they say it's not that big of a deal in Muay Thai, it is a big of a deal because of the gamblers and the money involved, and the pressure that comes with that as well too. So, man, to be honest, I'm sure she has like some past trauma associated with this from being in Muay Thai, and then when you get to a stage as big as the UFC and you lose a fight like that, the pressure that you feel from that and letting everyone down. I'm not saying I can understand where she's coming from because that's a very personal and dark place, but I really feel for her in that position, and I've seen that with a lot of fighters. As you continue to climb up the ranks, the wins get bigger and the losses they hurt more too, and I think she's experiencing that right now. I'm really glad that she got some help, and she's got a really, really solid group of people around her. And it seems like she's kind of on the right track now. But yeah, man, it's prevalent in this sport, and it's very difficult, and it's an unspoken thing, and I think a lot of it's attached to, kind of the character that fighters are expected to have and the definition of a fighter and what they're supposed to do. They're not supposed to kind of wear their emotions on the sleeve like that. So yeah, man, it's kind of one of these unspoken things that really exists, and it's really prevalent in the sport, and it's tough to deal with for sure.
Yeah, we were talking about before we started this interview how this sport is still in its infancy, and as fighters open up more about that side of the sport, I feel like the fans will understand, like, the mentality heading into a fight, and the mentality coming out of a fight. Brad Riddell was telling me like the wins only last until like the next day for him, but the losses linger for a long ass time, and I'm just like, damn, that's deep shit right there. Like,
Yeah.
that's hardcore, because you go in there and Brad fights to kill you, and he expects the
Yep.
same from his opponents too, and it's just, I don't know if I could put myself in that place. I'm just saying.
It's tough, man. And you know what? Like you said, I think the goal and something that really helps fighters is to be able to connect with the average person and the fans, right? But um, specifically in this instance, it makes that so tough because this is not a knock on the average person, but it's very rare for an average person on a daily basis to have something of that significance in their life, right? Like Brad said, right? A win that means so much, or lasts quickly, and a loss that you just feel in your bones for a really long time. That's not something that an average person can relate to because they don't take those risks on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, it's tough, man. It's something that is special to competition, and fighting in particular is just a different level of competition because it's so intimate and because it's so vulnerable. It's just something to me that why this sport is like so special and so sacred. And I'll never really do my best. I'm not going to talk down on fighters or talk shit about fighters because I understand that all of them are going through this in some capacity. It's what makes fighting different.
Yeah, I catch myself from saying something stupid about fighters all the time. Be like, oh, hold up, let me rewind that. You know what I mean? Now, going from one Muay Thai specialist to another, Jose Aldo, he announced his
Yeah.
retirement. In my eyes, he's top five GOAT across the sport. Like throughout the history of the sport, he could do everything, man. He dominated for like a ridiculous amount of time, man. Just your thoughts on the legend retiring.
Man, it's been a hell of a year for us losing people in this sport, right? It's one after the other, and they've been hurting recently. But man, Aldo is, I agree with you, top five all time for me, top three, just as a personal fan favorite. I love everything that he's done. I was fortunate. I got the first time I saw him fight, I think was like maybe 2010 or 2009 in person. He fought in Colorado for WEC. I want to say he fought Manny Gambirian, I think. Back, yeah, old school name drop right there. But man, ever since then, of course, even before that, I was a fan. But to watch him live was incredible. Man, he's had a beautiful career. He's fought everyone. Something that I really love about him is just the way that he continued to evolve and get better. His jiu-jitsu has always been high level. His Muay Thai was always high level. His counter wrestling was one of the best in the game. His defensive wrestling was incredible for not having a wrestling background. We saw later in his career not only going down to another weight class and changing himself, but making boxing a big focus in his game and really improving his boxing later on. Um, that to me is just like the sign of a true martial artist and a competitor, continuing to evolve and get better and test yourself in new ways. And just the way that he's carried himself through his entire career makes him a role model to so many people. So, he's one of the few that just did so many things and did them well. Um, yeah, I don't think we've seen the last of him in fighting. But to not see him in the UFC again still is a big hit, because that's been his home for so long, and he's been, one of the GOATs in that promotion. So I'm definitely gonna miss him. You know, he's one of the guys that you're gonna be able to go back. Even with this sport 20 years from now, you're gonna go watch Jose Aldo tapes on how to do things the right way in this sport on all levels, striking, grappling, wrestling. He's going to have, he's built the playbook that people are going to use for many, many years to come in this sport.
Yeah, Luke Thomas did a video about Jose Aldo and his impact on the sport. Shout out to Luke Thomas. It was a great breakdown of what he meant to the sport and what he has contributed. Now, for yourself, man, who are you working with right now? What kind of fights you got lined up?
So coming up, we have actually Boyan again on Octagon 35. So they're going to Frankfurt, Germany. I believe this is the first time they're going to Frankfurt. And we also have Mallory Martin on that card, which is awesome. This is going to be her Octagon debut. She's fighting a girl from Germany. So it's a big fight. There's going to be some national pride on the line for that one. So that's October 15th. We have those two coming up right now. Aside from that, Lauren Murphy is taking I don't want to say like a break right now, but based on kind of how her division is shaking out, she actually went to France to watch the fights. Who was supposed to be Caitlin
Chukagian.
Kagan. and who is she supposed to fight?
Manon
Manon, I think.
Farriot, I believe.
Yeah, right. And so that fight ended up getting moved to the Abu Dhabi card next month. So we're kind of waiting to see how this division is going to shake out. Andrade obviously pulled out of that fight. So what we're hoping for is Andrade in Brazil in January.
Wow.
We would love that matchup. I think that's a fantastic fight, and it would be great to go down to hostile territory and take out one of the top contenders in the division. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what shakes out in October with those two girls. Jessica obviously is kind of straddling both weight classes as well too. So, and she's injured. So we'll see what her next play is, if she wants to fight at 25 or go down to 15 for the next one. But that is our hope, kind of long-term timeline is, January in Brazil would be a great fight with Lauren and Jessica.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what version of Lauren comes out in her next fight, because like you said, she's not taking a break, but she's taking a break, you know what I mean? And then that means you get to focus on certain things and work on things that you can't work on in camp. That's the interesting shit right there, right? What we could get. But yeah, Brazil would be a hell of a time.